Welcome to Inside the Numbers, the RockDaisy sports performance podcast where we decode the data, science, and stories powering elite athlete development. I'm McKeefery, and in every episode, I'll be diving deep with top strength conditioning coaches, sports scientists, and performance experts who are driving the game forward using tech, insight, and grit. Hey guys, welcome back to Inside the Numbers, powered by RockDaisy. I'm your host, McKeefery, and got a good one for you today. Got Ash Samaniego. He's the head strength coach for women's basketball at UCLA. Won a national championship. He's a Marine. So many cool things about his story that I want to dig into. But man, really appreciate you jumping in the show here on a weekend and joining everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ron.
Ash, let's talk about that first. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right? You go to kind of private sector into the college space. Talk a little bit about that journey and how has being a Marine shaped you as a strength coach?
Man, I think first and foremost, it probably starts back to my teenage years of why and how I even became a Marine. I was kind of misguided, getting to a lot of trouble in Guam, and literally been to tons of trouble. And I actually joined the Marines almost by accident. Just walking into the recruiting office, I followed my friend to the Army recruiter. And I said, hey, give me a sec. I'm just going to go walk around. And then I see an empty recruiting office in the Marines, and I see pull-up bars, and I go there and just start repping out pull-ups. And then lo and behold, the recruiter comes out and he asked me if I want to join the Marines, and ended up taking a test. And a week later, I was, raising my hand to Uncle Sam, and I take off right after high school. I was 19 years old. I take off to the Marines, and I think the biggest shock for me was someone who was very troubled and getting to a lot of trouble is I have to do exactly what they do at that time. There's no gray areas. It was a shock, but at the same time, it was exactly what I needed. I like to reference this as the Marine Corps takes each person who's kind of like a house fish, so to speak, and they take you out to the sea and they just dump you there. And they don't let you get lost or drown, but they give you just enough stress and help you navigate your way back close to the shore and eventually learn how to swim on your own. That's kind of the reference I have with the Marines. It's a bunch of tough love. They'll let you drown a little bit, drink some water, but they'll pull you up once you pass out. So from a discipline standpoint, the Marines teaches you how to do the job and to make sure you do the job, right? So if they say go and pick up 10 pieces of trash, I'm going to go pick up 10 pieces of trash. I know I want to be a good Samaritan and pick up the 7th and 12th that I see, but the job is to pick up 10 pieces of trash. So I pick up 10 pieces of trash. Now, if there's a dumpster blocking my way, if there's a fence, a barbed wire, I got to go over, around, or through, because the job is to pick up 10 pieces of trash. And that's not trying to sound like a hardo or anything, but in reference, like if any military people are out there, like they're going to understand what I mean, because the job is the job no matter what.
Yeah, what an excellent piece of, I think that's so relatable to our athletes and their roles within the teams. And, I one of my stops along my coaching career was with Special Forces and working with some of the forces teams. And what I learned there is like when you got that team of however many operators, right? Like there's half that team is GI Joes, like they're the ultimate Americans, like God, family, country, right? But then you got the other half of the team that's just like they like to mess things up, but like that diversity and then that blend of keeping mission first and everybody coming together for that common purpose. Like I think there's so many parallels to the sport world. And that's why I think it goes back and forth. But, having learned some of those values, some of those characteristics, what are some of the non-negotiables that you have, not necessarily military related, but like just non-negotiables in your program when you're working with a different team?
Yeah, I have a couple of simple rules. It's pretty vague and strict at the same time. One is punctuality. I'm huge. Being around the military, like you hurry up and wait. You hurry up 20 minutes prior and then you're waiting an hour for the thing. So punctuality is a big piece. And I always ask my athletes to just do what I ask you and give it your best. Those are like just the two general things. And obviously it's simple, but it's also vague. Do what I ask you and give it your best. So it's pretty direct, but at the same time vague at the same, and that kind of speaks for itself. Like you just think of any task, do what I ask you and give it your best. So it goes back to the job is the job. I ask you to pick up 10 pieces, don't pick up 12. If there's something blocking your way, go over, around, or through and pick up 10 pieces, right? So it kind of ties back to that. Yeah.
You've you've gone through different levels, on your journey. I think there's a natural evolution of a strength coach, regardless of what level you started or where you're at. But having that unique experience, talk a little bit about kind of how your philosophy has changed, kind of going through different roles, but then at different jobs.
Yeah, so I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit, right? Because when I started out, everything was so rigid. Do what I ask you. My sheet says it's 4 sets of 6 at 80% for 3 reps or whatever, right? And that's kind of how I started out. Super rigid. You have to do it, and then later on you start learning like, oh, so and so can do it for 5, and then today, this day, so and so can only do 80% for a single. And then I kind of moved towards like a more autonomous base. Like, what is your strength today? And I know there's big talk on VBT right now, or argument, whatever you want to call it. Kind of used to use it as feedback before, but now it's just use the coach's eye. Okay, looks good. Hey, not bad. Hey, let's add 10 pounds, or let's back off a little bit and get you another couple reps. So there's some fluidity to my training, and as long as it's within the principles of heavy that day, or strength, or it's within the principles of power, or glycolytic demands, or whatever have you. So I've kind of gone from a very rigid militant style, so to speak, to a more kind of autonomous base when it comes to resistance training. Now, things are still rigid where, hey, line this up, or you're sprinting to 10 yards. I didn't ask you to sprint 9 yards, I asked you to sprint 10 yards. There's some rigidity in that, but with regards to strength and power, there's some autonomy that I've kind of adapted along the ways, and going from super rigid and that military guy, do this, and right, I kind of contradict myself with the picking up 10 trash, but you kind of have to adapt at the same time, right? That's another piece in military, right? Adapt and overcome. If it's not working out and it's not right, you got to adapt and do the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think you contradicted at all. I think that rigidity, or that the deal with different personalities, those are the obstacles. Like you get to the end mission, one way or another. But I think so many strength coaches can relate to what you just said, because like you can't be in our world and not preach discipline and accountability and all the things that we have to do. But like not every athlete's the same.
Yep.
And they're on a spectrum that you have to get them to the ultimate mission, which is winning. And I think every strength coach has to learn that in some type of way. I always relate it back to kind of even like the Bible, right? Like the Bible's, it's an interpretation, all these different versions. It's an interpretation, but like the principles, the biblical principles, or whatever you believe. But like from a strength and conditioning perspective, if as long as it's principle based, like you're going to get to the goal at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's a piece I don't want people to skip over there, because I think it's an important part of this job.
Yeah. But you know what helped me? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say
Well,
what
go
helped me
ahead.
kind
Yeah.
of change that philosophy too is not intentional. It was having kids. I had children, and I was like, man, I can't just keep saying, got to find a different angle. And it taught me some patience and a little variability there. So that kind of really helped me. I'm not telling strength coaches to go have kids and all, but that just kind of helped me.
Percent. Yeah, kids have a way of doing that. That's for sure. So this championship run, looking back on championship season, what were the biggest signs that the team had something kind of special?
Wow. I think it's the character piece. Like talent was definitely there. Talent was definitely there. I mean, we got 6 WNBA drafts. Like all of our senior eligible athletes got drafted. But really what set them apart was their character, their work ethic, who they were as people. When you talk and about players having a player-led team, and most programs try to enforce that and try to guide that. Well, like this team, it kind of came together. Obviously, the coaches and everybody try to guide that in their own areas, but you really see it off the court, on the court, when there's mistakes, a good day, bad day, rain, shine, like the chemistry and their ability to stick to the task. And hey, this is what we got to do. We didn't do it right. Let's adjust and let's get back to where we got to go. Like it was just so impressed. I remember just our first summer, and my first time working with that full group last summer. I remember after I worked with them, I went and told our head coach, Corey Close, I was like, Coach, I've never had a team like this, and I don't know if we'll ever have a team like this. Just how coachable they were, just character-wise. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest thing to get across to the athletes, is it's not just talent, right? I mean, you had talented teams in the past, but that shared consciousness that has to come with a team where you're they know what to the person to the right and the person to the left is going to do. That's forged in those fires and those things. What were some of the things that you did in the off season? You talked about like dropping the fish and then giving you enough rope to kind of like make a mistake, but like what were some of the things that you did to kind of help foster that through the off season?
Yeah, so my training styles, I do like to make the training tough, but I don't like to overfill the bucket where it's definitely pouring out. Like I start like every athlete when they work out with me the first couple weeks, they should feel underwhelmed. Like at least that's what my program has shipped through the past few years. The couple weeks they should feel underwhelmed because that's my time to see, okay, what's their movement capacity, what's their overall physical capacity in terms of workload, and I kind of gauge that. And then after that 2-3 weeks, we just start chipping away. All of a sudden, they start saying like, "Man, what's going on?" And then boom, boom, and now we're running tempos, boom, boom. And what reminded me, this is probably a couple years ago, reminded me one of our athletes. I didn't know this because this athlete was such a stud, just fast, strong, fit. And she said later in the year, when they have individual talks. So during film, sometimes coach will bring an athlete to the middle and we'll have him share things, and everybody shares something about that person. Well, one of the things that person shared was, I never knew I was able to do those things. And she was talking about our training in the summer. And I never knew that as well, because part of it was we just tacked on, tacked on, tacked on, tacked on, just chipping away to where they were, just enough to make them lay on the ground for 10 seconds, say, man, that sucks. And then they get up and then walk back. I think that's one piece, right? I think it was smart training paired with hard training, but I also didn't fold in terms of who I was as a person. I didn't, because I was there pretty relatively new. I wasn't trying to be somebody I'm not. I wasn't trying to be like who their last strength coach was. I was just trying to implement good training, be who I was, and lay down fundamental discipline. And everything kind of just worked itself out.
When you're talking, I mean, basketball in general is a long season,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then you get into like postseason and those types of things, and not really knowing where the finish line is necessarily. How do you manage like their central nervous system and keeping
Yeah.
them fresh and while still kind of driving like we need to keep training hard and
Yeah.
performing.
Yeah. So this in season really used uh catapult, so wearables a lot, and force plates. So those are the two main things. So I kind of help influence our workloads week to week in terms of what's our high day, low day, who are our high minute players, what are they going to do post game, what are the low minutes going to do post game, vice versa, -2, -1, or in match day. I kind of help that. So I obviously create a dashboard and general thresholds of what's high, what's low. Since we traveled to the Big Ten, we're gone about a week. So I take the force plates with me and we'll kind of jump just general ranges. What's a 10%, 15% drop, just a basic stoplight system, red, yellow, green. Who do we pull back? Who do we be aware of? And then who for sure needs to be shut down. Okay. So like post game, when we're still out, say in Michigan, those high minute players will be with our athletic trainer. They'll be doing some mobility treatments and whatnot. And those who are low load players, we'll do some drills. Like we'll touch everything from speed, little plyometrics, have them play small sided games, a little bit of full court and games just to kind of keep their fitness and kind of these boxes of change of direction, this power, and just kind of keep ticking those boxes if we think of a residual training approach. Right. And then the following day, game day -1 for the high minute players, I have to touch a little bit of their areas, right? Like I knew so and so Gabriela has jumped 200 times 3 days ago when she averages 70 jumps a game, but she won 200 that game. So I'm gonna offload her knees a little bit. Maybe we'll just do some isos, posterior work and whatnot, and we just kind of fill the gaps. How about this person? She didn't jump as much, or she didn't change direction as much as she usually does. Let's make sure we add in our warm up. Let's add this piece. Let's add this piece, and we'll have a couple touches of like velocity from a sprint or a slam or a loaded jump.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of follow-up questions there. I guess the first thing I'd start up with is, you mentioned force plates, but what are those variables that you're looking at throughout the year?
I keep it super simple, and then as we look at those things, we'll go in the rabbit hole, right? So we'll start with just basic MRSI, and then obviously what is that built off of? It's a contact time or time to take off with Hawkins, and jump height. That's just basic overview. dig deeper and then dig deeper. But so we'll start with MRSI and just jump height and contact time. Why did it go down? Was it jump height or contact time? And then we'll kind of just use that as a gauge of central nervous system fatigue, right?
Are you only looking at force plate data? Or are you looking at, VBT? Are you looking at some other variables?
I have one VBT. I don't do anymore. I used to do VBT when push bands were around, but I primarily use it for feedback intent and what was your max velo or 3 average, whatever it was, right? But I kind of haven't used it in like 4 years, but seems to be like picking up steam like over the last week or two, right? But so I would like to go back, but no, we'll do timing gates. I started early in the season, but in terms of like how we're operationally, it got a little bit messy. So I just stuck to the force plates.
Stereotype with basketball in general is similar to like wide receivers and DBs, right? Like you deal with a lot of different personalities and not always coming,
Yeah.
fully equipped with how to handle stress and success and those types of things. How do you, when you're talking about like that young freshman that didn't get very many minutes that's looking across the board and be like, I practiced the same amount of time this week. They just played the game. I could play the game all day, every day type of thing. How do you have those kinds of conversations to where when you individualize like that, where people are doing different levels of work to keep them all kind of bought into, hey, like understand that without the emotions getting involved?
Yeah, I think, man, that is really one of the toughest pieces of the job for me, in my opinion, because I'm so like objective and like, hey, this is what we're doing, blah, 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 blah. But that's kind of the things that I've been working on from I guess I guess being more having better emotional IQ. But to answer that is first the data helps. Like I say, hey, look, so and so's load was here. Your jumps are great. It was pretty much you're right at your average. So that kind of helps to say why we're gonna train. So it can kind of take some emotion away. Right. And then number two, I gotta learn and I'm still learning how to read the room better per se. Like I gotta know when I can, take off my strength coach hat and just listen for a little bit versus okay, that's enough listening. It's time to like, I get you, I understand. Let's go. We're back on the road and we're moving. So that's a balance that I'm still learning, and I've gotten some good feedback though. A couple of our players last year said, "Wow, you're like a girl dad," and I'm gonna say that's a good thing. Where I know I'm learning how to kind of. My wife might disagree, but I'm kind of still working my emotional IQ stuff because a lot of times I'm just like, this is the job. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. But sometimes I think reflecting back is I have to know when to take that hat off and just have a little discussion. If we're training 45 minutes, I could probably chip away at 10 and just to kind of, talk to the athlete a little bit more. It's something I really do need to work on.
Yeah, I know for me, I'm very similar mindset. And, like I had to put kind of things on the front end from a programming standpoint, from a structure standpoint to like protect me versus me. Like
Yeah.
if you gave me an hour, we're training hard. I don't care, we're going to train every time we come in. We're going to train hard, whether it's off season, in season, or whatever. But like, I know myself that, okay, all right, we're going to train hard. So in season, we're going to go for 30 minutes, and off season, we're going to go for an hour and 15 minutes. And using technology, we're going to hit this,
Yeah.
this variable, this metric, and then we're going to shut it down type of thing. Like I don't always follow that, but there's a good chunk of me that I try to put those barriers in on the front end and stick to that, and that's where I might change the methods
Yeah.
get there, but having some structure on the front end is always what's helped me the best in that way. You mentioned the girl dad piece and building trust. That to me, that's the fundamental piece because they have to believe that you can get them better, but they also have to believe they also have to have the respect that when there is a difference of opinion,
Yeah.
that there's trust there. How do you go about building trust with your athletes?
I think it starts with what I talked about earlier. I don't try to be somebody I'm not, and I don't try to force the relationship, but but I really get to know them. And I'm there before weights with the athletic trainer. I'm there before weights checking in on them. And part of it is I really care how they feel that day. And not just like, oh, I'm sad, but I mean like if something's nagging and all right, wait, I know we got like whatever, 5 box jumps or whatever. Let's make an adjustment there and maybe we'll just do like a clean pull variation and maybe let's not get off the ground, or we'll just throw something, make some kind of adjustment where kind of like what you said, adjust the method to the principle and maybe how the individual is that day, what's bugging them, what's their yellow light. Let's adjust so that yellow light can feel like a green light in training, but they can still get the stimuli that we're trying to induce. So I think that's one piece. And then after a whole season, obviously everybody gets a little better, right? And from a performance standpoint, I think that kind of ties everything after a year. But off the start, it's really tough because I don't know if they like me. But a part of that is I stick to my guns. Like, not that I don't care, but I still have to do the job piece because that's what I was primarily hired to do. But how can I get to know that? How can I get to know them while still being rigid with what I have to do, right? Because I have one athlete who she's a sophomore now. We joke around a lot, like, borderline inappropriate jokes, not like, oh yeah, look at that, look at that, look at that. But when it comes to training, it's pretty serious mode. Boom, 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 boom. And I still yell at her and all that. And vice versa. Afterwards, like, man, you got mad at me. I was like, well yeah, we still have to do our job. And she
Right.
goes, oh, okay, well, all right. And then go back and joking around about things. So just kind of finding that nice line.
Yeah, I've said it a million times. You get this from a team chaplain of ours, but you spell love TIME, right? So what
Yeah.
you love to spend time on. So what you said about like finding time outside of the four walls of the weight room beforehand, afterwards, joking. That's those moments that when you do ask, as long as you keep it professional, right?
Yep.
Then you can ask for more in those heated moments, and that's a big part of the job for sure. You talked a little bit about kind of checking in, you're caring about how they feel and those types of things, and that performance team. I mean, nobody's going to say that they don't have a great team around them or good relationships with every department, but like, what are some of the practical things that you do, with your sports medicine team, with your
Yeah.
sports technology team, with your coaching staff, all the pieces that touch the athlete? How do you stay connected to where there's one mission for that athlete?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give our head coach another shout out because she really pushes us to be the head coach in our area and make sure you really excel in our area. And whatever we need to do to support the team, she will, as best as she can, make happen. So that's one piece. I think a good head coach who really understands, or maybe even doesn't understand, listens to their strength coach, sports medicine, nutrition, and listens to everybody. So I think we really had that true high performance model the past couple of years. Everybody always said, oh, we do it, we do this, we do that. But we really, I think, lived it in the sense that this is what's going on with said athlete. This is what we're doing here in this area. This is what nutrition's doing. And she's going to touch base with so-and-so after. And at practice, let's go every other rep. Let's reduce this variable or whatnot. And all the coaches, sports medicine, everybody was really bought in. And our day-to-day is kind of pretty similar. From they come in first, they have their nutrition, and then they go check with sports medicine, whether it's some treatments or they'll kind of do like a little mobility or prehab, so to speak. Then they come to me, and during those times, I'm checking in. Like, they probably just think I'm just walking around doing nothing. At least the players do it, but I'm actually asking the nutrition, "What'd you see? What's your thoughts? Anybody okay? Is so and so here yet?" Kind of, the attendance thing. So and so here
Yep.
yet? Even I'll talk to AT. How so and so? Everything good? Just give me a quick thumbs up in the middle or down, like just a quick
Yep.
check. So I know if I got to make an adjustment. And then if there's any issues or any yellow or red flags, we get together literally right there on the spot, just quick chat, and okay, we got to pass this info to the coaching staff because they too have their plan for the day, and we don't want to mess it up right when we arrive at practice. So I think we did a really good job, everyone doing their jobs to the best of their ability, and then number two, the coaching staff really buying into the performance staff and what we had to say.
Yeah, I think that daily communication is critical. I mean, the staffs that just wait for for the staff meeting to go over the injury report, and that's the only interaction you have, like that, you're failing right then. If you're
Yeah,
not
no, for
supporting
sure.
the nutritionist with check-ins and body weights and all the different things, like, it's going to fail there. So that support is critical.
Yeah, I mean, especially football, like, man, you got how many 100 dudes and like so many moving pieces, and not you don't have as much games or wiggle room for anything. Like, every piece is critical.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I want to shift gears a little bit here as we end the episode. For the younger strength coaches that are listening to this, what is the one mistake that you've seen a lot of young strength coaches?
I think with social media, I think they want to jump straight into the cool looking things. They want to do the intensive plyos and crazy things on like their first couple phases, and they just want to do what they think is cool. And I say they, but because I too was probably like that in college, like, man, that looks cool. Let's go. We're just gonna go bang this, all these med balls. Let's go triple broad jump day one. We're like, I mean, I guess that's okay if you gave them some homework to prep for, but if they're coming in, like, that was my mistake where I kind of went too gung-ho with some things rather than understanding, like, okay, let me make sure that these guys are acclimated for this. Some are, at least from my experience. There's a portion that are, there's a portion that's kind of the general, and there's that, probably bottom 10% who didn't do much, right? So I've shifted towards programming for that bottom 10%. And then as I see fit within the session, I'll make adjustments for the other, 90%. I make the progressions for the 90% or regressions as needed. So I would rather now, my philosophy now is I would rather progress the following session rather than regress that session. That's kind of my philosophy now.
Right. Yeah, I think what I found is so many coaches are trying to stay, like athletes in general. I think at this point, there's their strength coach at home that's like exactly what you're talking about, just throws the stuff up on social media that's trying to get new clients, and this is the cool hip place to train. And then you're trying to kind of reconcile that with like the meat and potatoes of what solid training needs to be for development.
Yeah.
And what I always tell people is, like, you have to have enough sugar in the program to where athletes are like, oh wow, you're current,
Yeah.
But the way to do that for me oftentimes is in the active rest, So like,
Yeah.
what we'll do is, you're training, but then when you're out of your training, you're doing your squat set, you're doing one arm juggling with a tennis ball as a receiver or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
to where they feel like there's a little bit of sugar. It's making them better as an athlete, that you're staying, current with your research and what's out there. But, the cracking a few eggs to make, at the beginning to kind of learn, like, that's the part that's got to stop. Like, you can't be using your athletes as like a laboratory for you to try
Yep.
to figure out what you want to do. That's the part that's got to be slow played.
Yeah. 100%. I think that will help a lot of young interns and strength coaches just stick to the fundamentals. I think you can't go wrong with your basic, boring CSCS reps to start with, and then just sprinkle, like what you said, some candy and sugar as you get better.
What's a book, resource, or coach that's influenced you?
It's about learning how to talk to people better. Remember how I told you I need work myself, I think, and probably learning myself as well. So I'm going to say two things I read. I think Ego is the Enemy was one, and how to talk to anybody. And there's this thing that we do. I got it from our program. It's called the Enneagram. It's kind of like a personality test. I don't know if you ever heard about it.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that thing was accurate as hell. Like my style and how I like to respond to things. And the things that I say I need to work on, that thing was saying, I was like, okay. So that really helped me reflect, and that helped me understand that we are all wired different.
That's
And
right.
we can still get together, and it helps me understand people better. Yeah.
Yeah, such a good point. You gotta learn. The empathy piece is the hardest part, right? Is putting yourself in other people's shoes and trying but the more you understand, the more that you find like tools outside of strength conditioning to influence strength conditioning, I think is
Yeah.
great. What's the best piece of coaching advice you ever received?
It was undergrad. It's who you know that gets you there. It's what you know that keeps you there.
Fantastic. I love that. Give me a quote or a belief that you think shapes kind of how you coach.
It's from the Marines, and it goes like this: no better friend, no worse enemy. And you take that as it is. That means I'll be there for you no matter what. If someone's bothering you, I'm right beside you.
No,
I stole that from the Marines. That's kind of how I try to live my life with the people who are close to me.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Well, man, this has been awesome. Where can people stay up with you and learn more about what you have going on?
They can email me in UCLA or Instagram, Coach Ash from Guam. I don't post so many cool things, do this, do that. This is the best thing. I'll just post workouts and just have people use their imagination, what they want to do with it. I'm not going to tell you this is the best or worst thing, but I'll just post workouts here and there, what we're doing and what I'm doing personally. Some jujitsu videos here and there.
Love it. Love it. I think that again, I mean, that's the you can't spend 30 minutes with you and not see your passion and how you go about your business and your work with your athletes. And it's being a student and being eclectic and learning from many different styles and taking those and applying them in an elite way. It's no surprise to me the success that you've had, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. I appreciate those words. Thank you so much.